Well, as we begin to wrap up our service and concert this morning, I want to thank the Penrith Seventh Adventist Church for the opportunity and the privilege of being here with you once again. It was September 24 of 2003 that I was here for the first time, and then September of 22 of 2007 that I was here. So I don't know what it is about September, but it seems like I'm always here during the month of September. And it is a wonderful privilege to be able to be back and be with you and see some familiar faces like Lynn and Heather and spend some time with them. I've gotten to know them over the last few years, and that's something that I love about what I do, is making new friends and seeing some of my old friends. One of the things that I hate about what I do is having to say goodbye. And I have to do that almost every week. But it makes me think about the fact that when we get to heaven, we're not going to have to say goodbye anymore. Praise the Lord. And for those that are visiting for the very first time or the second time this church, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here. I hope that as you leave, you have been encouraged, blessed, inspired, and uplifted through the music and the words. And the last time that I was here, I had the opportunity to share with you the wonderful work that has been taking place in Cuba. Just to expound on the short story that I shared at the very beginning, my dad wrote a letter to Fidel Castro asking him to let us leave. He said, we've been trying to leave Cuba for many years. Because we're Christians, because we want to worship God, we are persecuted and harassed. I remember being interrogated in school time after time again. The teachers would line up and tell me, what proof do you have that there is a God? Why don't you just forget about that? Renounce that silly faith of yours. And that happened on a regular basis for many, many Christians. And so my dad wanted to bring his family out of Cuba so that we can go to a place where we can worship God freely. And he wrote that letter to Fidel Castro, which could have been a death sentence because people had gone to jail for far less than that. But then somebody showed up in our house on a Friday afternoon and said, get your family ready because you're leaving Cuba right away. And just 24 hours later, they came in 2 police cars. We gave everything that we had in our home to friends, family, church family, neighbors, because whatever remained behind would be used and confiscated by the government. And they said, just bring the clothes that you're wearing, because in 2 to 3 days, you'll be out of Cuba and the United States of America. Well, 3 months later, we were still waiting in an army camp with hundreds of other people. But finally, on the 3rd of December, a day that I'll never forget, they began to load those few hundred people that were left into buses and vans. And they took us to the airport and put us on airplanes. And within a matter of 45 minutes, we were in the United States of America. And that was the day that I experienced freedom for the very first time. We had nothing except the clothes that we were wearing when we stepped on the soil of the United States. But we were given freedom and opportunity. That day I ate an apple and a grape for the very first time. I remember chewing gum, and I was so excited that when I chewed it for a while, I swallowed it. And people would tell me, no, you just spit it out and chew more. And there was more of everything. And it was difficult for my family to get started. My dad couldn't find a job. So after about two and a half months, in February of 1981, we moved from Miami, Florida, up north to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee is a very cold city in the wintertime. And we arrived there to face the coldest winter they had had in 80 years. We had no coats or blankets in the house where we were staying. Didn't have any heating. And I remember sometimes how my dad, my sister, my mom, and myself would huddle together on a mattress to try to keep each other warm. But the people from the neighborhood, the communities, churches, began to bring us food, clothing, and money. And one of the things that my mother said to me, she said, Jamie, we didn't come to this country to pursue fame or fortune. We came here because we wanted to give you and your sister the opportunity of having a Christian education so that you could be prepared to serve God. When my parents received their very first welfare check, I don't know what you call it here in Australia, but the government helps those who are newly arrived to get started with that money. Instead of taking it to buy things that we needed, my mom and dad